You're on your knees in the driveway at 7 a.m., patching a bald spot on a bicycle tire that isn't even yours. It belongs to the kid 2 doors down who leaves it against your fence like it's a public bike rack. You don't mind. You've got the patch kit out anyway, the same one you've had for 6 years, the rubber cement dried to a crust you have to scrape off with a thumbnail. Your neighbor jogs past, lifts 2 fingers off his water bottle in a wave. He thinks you're retired from something ordinary. Maintenance, maybe? Or the post office. You've never corrected him because he's never asked, and you've built a whole life out of nobody asking. Your phone is on the porch step, face up, and it lights with an email you already know is coming. Quarterly statement. You don't reach for it right away. You finish the patch first, press the tire back onto the rim, spin the wheel once to check it holds air. Then you sit back on your heels and pick up the phone. $10,140,000. You read the number the way you'd read a weather report for a city you don't live in. Mildly interesting. Doesn't change what you're wearing today. You lock the phone, put it back on the step, and go back to the bike, because the valve cap is missing and you know exactly which drawer in the garage has a spare. That's the whole scene. That's the whole secret. $10 million, and a man on his knees in a driveway, fixing a stranger's kid's bike, and nobody in a 100-mile radius would guess it. You built this slowly. 22 years of it. Index funds nobody talks about at parties. A rental duplex you manage yourself because a property manager is a 10% fee for someone to ignore your tenants' plumbing complaints. A business you sold at 41 that most people in town still think just quietly closed. You have never once said the number out loud to another living person. Not your barber. Not your brother. Not the woman you've been seeing for 8 months who still thinks your Wednesday errands are about the hardware store and not a call with your accountant. Wealth, once it crosses a certain line, stops being a number and becomes a decision. And the decision you made, somewhere around your 3rd million, was to disappear. The world runs on a simple assumption: if you had it, you'd show it. New truck. Renovated kitchen. A watch that costs more than a car. People read the absence of those things as the absence of the money, and you have let that math work for you for 2 decades, because the alternative is a life where every conversation has a shadow standing behind it, waiting to ask for something. You learned this the expensive way, watching someone else learn it the hard way first. Your college roommate Dale hit it big early. Sold a small software patent to a company that needed it more than he did, and the check was 7 figures before he turned 30. Dale did what people think you're supposed to do. New house on the good side of the lake. A boat he named after his mother. Watches. He told people. He wanted people to know, because what's the use of climbing a mountain if nobody's there to see you plant a flag? Within 4 years Dale had 3 brothers-in-law he never really liked asking him to co-sign things. A cousin who called every December needing just enough to get through the holidays, and then called again every December after that, because the ask, once it works, becomes a subscription. A friend from church who pitched him on a car wash franchise, then a vending machine route, then a multi-level thing selling protein powder, 3 swings at Dale's money in under 2 years. Dale said yes to the first one out of guilt, no to the second out of exhaustion, and by the third he wasn't returning the man's calls at all, which cost him the friendship anyway, just slower and uglier. The money didn't ruin Dale. The visibility did. The moment people can see your wealth, they stop seeing you. You become a building. And everyone's got a project that needs a building. You watched this happen to Dale in real time, at a distance, the way you watch a house fire from across the street. Close enough to feel it. Far enough not to burn. And somewhere in that distance you made a decision you've never said out loud to anyone: you would get rich the same way water gets into a basement. Quietly, from underneath, with no one noticing until it was already done. Here's what nobody tells you about being invisible on purpose. It costs you almost as much as being visible does. Just in a different currency. Your mother, at 73, still asks if you're doing all right for money, in the careful way parents ask when they're afraid of the answer. She means it kindly. She also means it as an opening, in case the answer is bad and she needs to help. You tell her you're doing fine, which is true and also the single largest understatement you've ever told another human being. She has no idea her son could buy her whole street. Your brother, the one who actually did become visible, new lifted truck, a second home he can't quite afford, a Facebook page that reads like a highlight reel shot entirely in gold light. Asked you for money exactly once, 3 years ago, after a bad year in his business. $12,000 to cover a gap in payroll. You gave it to him as a loan on paper and a gift in your own mind, and you did it from an account that represented less than 0.1% of what you actually had. He thanked you like you bled for it. He still thinks that $12,000 was a stretch for you. You can be generous and invisible at the same time. What you can't be is generous, invisible, and understood. That's the tax nobody mentions. Every kindness you do gets measured against the wrong ruler, because the people measuring it don't know the real size of the ruler in your hand. Your brother thinks you're comfortable. Comfortable is doing fine, has a cushion, sleeps okay at night. He does not think you're a man who could pay off his entire house and never feel it, because if he thought that, the relationship would change shape entirely, and some part of you, the part that watched Dale lose his weekends to relatives with excuses, decided a long time ago that you would rather be underestimated by the people you love than owned by them. There's a woman named Priya who cuts your hair every 6 weeks, has for 9 years, and knows more true things about your actual life than your own brother does, purely because she's never once suspected there was anything worth digging for. She talks to you the way she talks to everyone in that chair, about her kids, about the shop's lease going up again, about her ex who still hasn't paid what he owes her from the divorce. One appointment, she mentions, almost as a joke, that she wishes someone would just buy the building her shops and so her landlord would stop raising the rent every renewal. You laugh along. You say something like, "That'd be nice." You don't tell her that you looked up the building's listing that same night. You don't tell her that you could buy it in cash without touching your retirement accounts. You don't tell her because the second you did, you would stop being the guy in her chair who listens, and start being the guy she has to be careful around. And you have decided, with the same quiet discipline you've applied to every other part of this life, that you would rather keep the 20 minutes of honest conversation than own the building. The moment someone finds out what you're worth, they stop telling you what they actually think. They start telling you what they think you want to hear, or what they need you to give. You didn't buy the building. Somebody else did, 6 months later, a real estate company with a name like a law firm, and the rent went up anyway. Priya complained about it to you in the chair, same as she complains about everything, never knowing you'd once held the exact fix for her problem in your hands and set it back down on purpose. You've replayed that decision more than once. You still think you made the right one. You're just not entirely sure anymore what right costs. The test always comes from the direction you don't expect. It comes on a Tuesday, at your niece's high school graduation party, in a backyard full of foil balloons shaped like the number 18 and a folding table sagging under sheet cake. Your brother is holding court near the grill the way he always does, telling a story about the new truck's towing capacity to a man who clearly doesn't care but is too polite to walk away. Your niece finds you by the drinks cooler. She's the one who's always looked at you a little differently, the quiet one in a loud family, the one who reads actual books. She asks you carefully, like she's asking something illegal, if you know anything about paying for college without drowning in loans. You do. You know exactly how to fund 4 years of state school in cash without blinking. You know because you've already run the numbers twice, once for fun, once because some part of you was hoping she'd ask. You tell her about scholarships. About community college transfer credits. About FAFSA timing. Good, real, useful advice. The kind any responsible adult who cares about a kid would give. You do not tell her that the actual gap in her plan, $11,000 a year for 4 years, is a rounding error in your life. You do not offer to close it. You watch her nod, thank you, and walk back toward the cake table looking exactly as worried as she did before, and something in your chest does the thing it always does in these moments, a small, familiar tightening, like a rope pulled just short of where it needs to go. Invisibility protects you from being used. It also, sometimes, quietly, protects you from being needed in the one way you'd actually want to be. You almost say something. You get as far as opening your mouth. Then your brother's laugh booms across the yard at his own towing capacity joke, and you think about Dale, and the boat named after his mother, and the cousin who called every December like a bill coming due, and you close your mouth and go get more ice instead. The closest anyone has ever come to finding out is your father, And it happened almost by accident, in a hospital waiting room, of all places, during the 11 hours you sat with him after his procedure. He's dozing in the recliner. You're in the plastic chair beside him, and your phone buzzes with a message from your financial advisor, a routine confirmation of a transfer, the number sitting right there on the lock screen for exactly as long as it takes your father to blink awake and glance sideways, the way old men do when they're bored and looking for something to comment on. He doesn't say anything for a second. You watch him read it, watch the math happen behind his eyes, the same math you did about Dale all those years ago, except now it's aimed at you. "That a lot of zeros for a hardware store trip," he says. Not a question. An opening, the same kind your mother always leaves. You could lie. You've lied by omission for 22 years, and one more wouldn't cost you anything new. Instead, for the first time in your adult life, you tell your father the truth, quietly, in a hospital waiting room that smells like hand sanitizer and old coffee, machines beeping down the hall for somebody else's father. He doesn't react the way you expect. No shock, no sudden warmth, no request. He just nods, slow, like he's been handed information that confirms something he already suspected, and looks back at the ceiling tiles. "Your grandfather did the same thing," he says. "Had a farm worth more than the whole county thought it was. Drove a truck with a hole in the floorboard till the day he died. People used to feel sorry for him at church." He almost smiles. He let them. You come from a line of people who understood something most people never learn. The money that lasts is the money nobody knows to ask you for. You sit there for a long time after that, the two of you, not saying much else, the machines beeping down the hall, your father's hand loose in yours, and for the first time the silence doesn't feel like a wall you built. It feels like something you inherited. Your father comes home from the hospital slower than he went in, and 2 weeks later you're both back in your driveway, him in the lawn chair he insists on dragging out even though he's not supposed to be lifting anything, you underneath his old truck because the same hole in the floorboard your grandfather apparently drove around with has finally rusted all the way through. You're welding a patch plate in, the same kind of patient, unglamorous work as the bike tire from the beginning of all this, sparks catching the afternoon light, your father watching from the chair with his hands folded like he's at a ceremony instead of a driveway. "You could pay someone to do that in 20 minutes, he says. "I know," you say. "You could buy me a new truck outright and never notice it was gone. I know that too." He's quiet for a second, and you can feel him deciding something, the same way you've watched other people decide things their whole life without ever knowing you were watching. "Then why?" he says. "Are you under there sweating like it's the only truck in the world?" You slide out from under the truck, wipe your hands on a rag that used to be a t-shirt, and you look at him for a second before you answer, because the honest answer took you 22 years to earn and you want to say it right. "Because this is the part that's actually mine," you say. "The money just sits there. This is the part one get to do." He doesn't say anything else. He just nods, the same slow nod from the hospital, and looks back up at the sky, and you slide back under the truck and finish the weld. $10 million, and the proudest thing you've built all week is a patch on a floorboard nobody will ever see. That's the whole secret, in the end. Not the number. The number was never the hard part. The hard part was staying a person after you got it, staying someone who kneels in driveways, who fixes strangers' bikes, who lets a hairdresser complain about her rent without ever becoming her landlord, who lets a niece worry about college for one more year because the alternative costs something the money can't buy back. You didn't get rich and disappear. You got rich and simply never agreed to be found. The wealthiest people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who tell you what they're worth. They're the ones kneeling in a driveway you drove past this morning, invisible in plain sight, patching a tire, saying nothing, letting the whole world keep guessing wrong.